It's a little symbol with a microphone on, Vern. Just click on it. Turn your mic off. Sorry. Turn your volume on. Well, you might. Good man.
I've got it on.
Got it on. That's right. That's all right. Okay, Vern, good to see you.
Yes, you too.
Yeah.
All of you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hey, got your submission in front of us, so we'll take it as read. You're more than welcome to speak to it. Same story, 10 minutes for you to talk, and if you want any questions, leave a few minutes for councillors to ask any questions.
Sure.
Other than that, knock your socks off. Vern.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, councillors and staff who are watching. Yes, I have made a submission. It's the same voice that I speak with, that I have spoken with for some time, obviously as a ratepayer, a business owner, and a member of the Onewhiro Tuakau Community Board. One thing I did notice, that it wasn't easy to put more than one name in the name of the submitter. It might be something to have a look at later. So obviously I'm advocating very much to see a split within the area of Onewhiro and Tuakau, to see that Tuakau remains very much with an urban voice in its community board. And I certainly would be submitting that I would support either a community committee or a community board, specifically in the rural community. Now, both communities are growing, I believe, at a more rapid pace than perhaps what council might necessarily have recorded in numbers of people. For example, there are 450 sections to come on stream here in Tuakau, under development now in terms of groundwork. We will commence sales, or sales will commence on those sections, I believe, in the later part of this year, certainly early next year. So that's approximately another 1,000 people that would occupy those properties. And I believe that they need to be counted into the boundary numbers at the moment. But I guess more importantly to me, as a resident and business owner, is that I believe that each community must have its own voice. We should have no influence as an urban community into the requirements of what the rural community has and needs. They have very specific needs, very different from that of us here. And our urban growth is to a level now that we must begin to have a voice and speak on our own. Now, traditionally, of course, submissions-wise, Tuakau's always been very light in numbers, and it would be very fair to say that the rural community has organised themselves so well that they have what I would consider an underlying I've lost the word that I was going to use, involvement in decision-making that could affect us within the urban area. And I think that each voice needs to be separate, but each needs to also support the other. So even if there was to be a split, and perhaps it might be four candidates or 4 board members each side, we still would be working with each other, but supporting each other, yes, but each having a completely separate voice. I know there's different views very strongly over the river, and while we support them in every way, I just think that common sense needs to prevail and that we need to have a split. Something I've campaigned for now. I'm in my 6th year of community board, and we've been saying this right from the beginning of when we were needing to look at the representational review some years ago. I think that's, for me, the biggest thing that I think that would allow us to move forward in this community, very much so. And you may you may ask the question, well, what's in the name, Vern? And I would say that there's a huge amount at stake within the name Monepiro Tuakau Community Board. And I think that many of our residents here just don't seem to understand the importance of having a board of our own under Tuakau. I think that they see that with where it is and the way it's named, I think that grossly affects us. Not that I have anything against what happens over the river. It's just that I think we need to be showing it completely separately. That probably is the most important thing that I can see at the moment. I've answered all of the other points with regards to, and unfortunately, in the lockdown 3 days, it was the 3 days that I had earmarked to go door knocking to get further submissions in from local residents in regards to just the general submissions. But lockdown stopped that, and there was a limit to how many I could get done over the phone, and in also due to my own business requirements at the time. So yeah, happy to take any questions, but I just think common sense should see a split, urban being what I understand the main areas that community boards were originally to involve, and that rural communities were to be somewhat different. How we do it, look, I'm not sure.
Thanks.
But happy to take questions.
Okay. Righto. I've Councillor Wilton first.
Yeah,
Good
thanks for
afternoon,
that.
Chris.
Yeah,
Hey,
g'day,
Chris.
Vern. So it's probably the same question I asked the other Tuakau guy who was on the business board.
Gary.
Is that there seems to be a real strong push from Monepiro to stay on the Tuakau board. Although if they got a community board, they seem to be prepared to move. Now the worry is if we turn around and say, right, we'll split the boards, we're going to get a lot of pushback saying from that area that the council doesn't listen. So you got any way of mitigating that to sort of help us out?
It's nothing that I didn't expect. Let's put it this way. When we did the representational review boundary meeting at the Pukekohe Hall and I arrived, a couple of the comments were that I had a cheek to arrive at the meeting. So, and I just stood firm and said, well, hey, this is where I am and this is what I've stood for, and I'm not changing my views. I have to say, Chris, I believe that both areas will gain more strength by separation. However that separation is to be, I think each will get a much stronger voice within each of their own communities. And I think that, as I say, I believe that Tuakau has far too much influence over it from the rural community. I grant you that, yes, we're their service town and so on. But an urban voice and a rural voice are two completely different voices. So how you mitigate that, how you mitigate and get the pushback from over the river, I'm not sure. But I'm sure that many of them are going to be speaking and raising their points. You might get more from them than from me.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Councillor, yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission, Vern. I note that you, in respect of the proposed Port Waikato ward, you note that has been too large and you suggest that be 2 councillors. Would you prefer that option? Obviously, this is a numbers game as well. Would you prefer that option and extend the ward even bigger with 2 councillors, or would you rather change the boundaries in the proposed Port Waikato ward?
Councillor, I'm at 2 minds on that one. I actually thought that someone might ask me this question, and I was talking about it earlier in the day with Gary, and I know that Gary made a point that he wanted to see Akaraka stay within our general area.
Yeah.
And I know that from the community board discussions we understood and understand that there is more alignment with Akaraka with Port Waikato. So that is a very difficult question, and I think that my answer to it was I believe that yes, an additional councillor was necessary for that area. I probably haven't given as much thought to that particular area. I'm probably a little neutral, but I do think that an additional councillor, we have a very large area and it is very difficult. And I know that all of the discussions about how you might shift boundaries for the 10,000 plus 10% level, if I've got that correct, is never going to be easy. And whichever way you go, or whatever might be proposed from the board or wherever, there's going to be pushback one way or the other. So I really don't have the answer for that one.
All right, look, thanks, Vernon. I know I've got a couple of councillors that want to ask questions, but I'm out of time and I've got somebody waiting. So I need
Feel
to
free
move on.
to email me. Yeah.
Yeah, but thanks very much for your submission. It is very, very much appreciated. And the fact that you actually showed up. Thanks very much, Vern.
No problem at all. Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.
Yes.
See ya.
Councillor submission number 2024, page 130, Mercer Community Committee.
Who have we got from Mercer?
Darian.
Okay.
Hi, Your Worship.
It's Liam.
It's my wife's Zoom one, so
Yeah, I knew you didn't look like Darian, Liam. Hey, good to see you, mate. Look, take your submission.
yes, you also.
Yeah, take your submission as read, and you've got 10 minutes, which includes any questions from the councillors. I think you've done this before. So look, when you're ready to go, head off and knock your socks off.
Cool. I've got a presentation PowerPoint one, so I'm just going to do my screen with you guys. Hopefully this works. Cool. Everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Good afternoon, His Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Liam McGrath. I am the chairman of the Mercer Community Committee. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, can you please hold all until the end? I will be covering the following topics from the committee's submission on the representation review: ward boundaries, community boards, general comments, councillor representation. General ward boundaries. Ward boundaries to be revised further to take into account communities of interest. Waiuku, Kariotahi and Akaka community of interest is in Tuakau rather than the proposed Port Waikato ward due to it being a border town with Auckland and a majority of people travel north for work, health and schooling. For them to connect to the rest of the ward, it is going through Tuakau and over the Tuakau Bridge, as this is the nearest access over the Waikato River. Consideration to be given to extremities of wards and the difference in needs. The northern and southern points of Wairinga Hukanui ward could have different needs that could be best served by moved into the surrounding communities. The same goes for Tamahere Newcastle ward and east and west points. Create separate wards by dividing it in half using the Waikato River, taking in the southern tip of Wairinga Hukanui ward and still keep the 3 councillors. Other small boundary adjustments could be made if the above changes are made to ensure fair representation. Māori ward boundaries. This slide shows the Waikato district that is inside the black square. I have shadowed the district boundaries and overlaid it onto the map that gives the locations of the maraes, which are identified by the red dots. I would like to acknowledge the District Council on including Māori wards and Māori councillors in this representation review. If boundaries are to be placed in the Māori ward in the future, consideration be given to location of maraes to help define any boundaries. Recommendations from our EB representatives within our committee have advised possibility of a north and southern boundary or northern and southern ward councillors.
Yeah.
Community boards. These should remain under consideration to be given to the fact there is 3 within 1 ward. This could be perceived as unfair representation within council governance. Options of dividing the ward back into current wards, changing some community boards to community committees, or a combination of both could help with this situation. General comments. Population table is confusing and not accurate. Estimated population compared to councillors compared to population per councillor with 10% deviation margin does not add up. For example, Tuakau ward has population of 642, yet population per councillor is not the same, and there's only one councillor. Tamihere Newcastle ward population is 17,150 with 3 councillors. That is an average of 5,716 per councillor. Therefore, the deviation will be different. A table in the opening paragraphs of the draft representation proposal outlining the current population for each ward, population per councillor, and deviation would have been beneficial. This information would have been great to compare and just help justify the new proposed ward boundaries and number of councillors. I requested from council the current population, however, was given the 2018 representation review final numbers. Councillors. For the following slides, I will be using this table with the population as calculated. Māori ward councillors. The council has determined that the Māori ward will have 2 councillors due to the ward encompassing the entire district. An increase in councillors would ensure better and timely representation. From table given, the percentage of Māori in the district is 18%. However, from the long-term plan and the Waikato 2070, these percentages are greater at 30.2% and 25.9% respectively. Based on the latest figures from the LTP, 30.2%, a total population of 83,010 people calculated gives a Māori population of 25,069. Using the formula from Schedule 1 of the Local Electoral Act 2001, 25,069 divided by a total population of 83,010 multiplied by the number of proposed councillors of 13 equals 3.93. Complying with the Schedule 1A of the Local Electoral Act 2001, this number gets rounded up to the nearest whole number. Therefore, total number of Māori ward members should be 4. General ward councillors. Based on previous long-term plans in 2025, 2015 to 2025, 2018 to 2028, and 2021 to 2031, there has been a trend of underestimating the population growth. I'm aware that these are projections based on current statistics at the time that these were produced. However, could the margins of projection or a greater variance scenarios in how the district will grow help better determine potential growth nodes given the various reports carried out by the Council, Blueprinting and Waikato 2070, to name a few, help guide these. There is evidence and continuous statements within various documents, here specifically the long-term plans, outlining where the growth within the district will be, which is in the north around Pokeno, Tuakau, and Te Kauwhara. From the last reputation review, Pokeno and Tuakau's ward of Aroa ki Tuakau was approved by the Local Government Commission to be over the allowed margin. Due to not being able to get current figures for the current wards, however, based on the 2 tables, the population has increased by 10,000. So this would have created a greater deviation margin. As Council has placed both Tuakau and Pokeno at the high end of the margin, and given the trend of population growth, the north is again underrepresented and will potentially exceed the allowable margin. Therefore, Council is reactive and not proactive in ensuring fair representation in high growth areas. Consideration also to be given to Central Ward due to the new infrastructure and sleephead business that will increase the population, therefore may increase the margin. As outlined in the Local Government Commission determination letter dated 1st of April 2019 from the 2018 representation review, reference item 42, it has highlighted that a comprehensive review be undertaken. I commend Council for taking this on board and having created a new ward structure to enable fair representation across the district, including Māori wards. However, they have identified the growth and impact it has on evenness of representation across the wards and community boards committees. As item 43 reads, this was raised at the hearing to the Council with both Mayor and Chief Executive agreeing the need for a thorough review based on the most up-to-date population statistics. The Council has not provided most up-to-date population statistics. I'm aware that when the 2018 review was conducted, the census results were delayed in being released. Therefore, an estimation could only be used to determine ward population. However, the table given to me by council of what I requested was not the final approved ward population by the Local Government Commission. The table in the determination letter shows Aotearoa ki Tuakau at 12.71% over, based on 2017 statistics New Zealand figures. Changes due to the mesh block that contained the Mercy Airport being transferred from Whangamarino to the Aotearoa ki Tuakau ward. As alluded to in previous slides, there has been no up-to-date information given on current ward population, only how it would look based on June 2020 estimates with the new ward structure. For the district to fully understand how the representation review impacts themselves and their communities, the most up-to-date current population statistics for current levels of representation in each ward needs to be placed in an updated table. This again will reinforce the needs for and the reasons for the new ward boundary and structures. In summary, ward boundaries, consideration for communities on borders or extremities of wards to be connected to the communities of interest. Consideration for any future boundaries for the Māori ward to take into account location of maraes. Community boards to be retained, however, consideration to locations within wards due to potential perceived unfair representation within council governments. General comments, clarity and accuracy of ward population tables and to include current ward population for comparison. Councillor representation, increase Māori ward councillors to 4 based on calculation provided using increased Māori population. Increase councillors and or adjust ward boundaries to ensure margins will not be exceeded due to growth, especially in the north, to ensure fair representation. Provide most up-to-date population statistics for current and proposed wards as agreed to by Mayor and Chief Executive from the Local Government Commission determination letter to ensure transparency of information. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Liam. We're out of time for questions, but I can't let you go without clarifying a couple of things. So firstly, when the numbers you use, can you take your screen down? The numbers you use in relation to iwi is actually 13,800 because that's what's on the electoral roll and that's the only figure we can use. We can't use total population. All right? You understand that?
Okay.
Okay. The other one is, and you.
Yep, I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the figure we must work with under the legislation. So the other one is you talk about trends. We can't use trends either. We've got to use accurate data on the day. We can't use something that might be different tomorrow. It's got to be what's on the data today. So we can't bring into consideration trends. Yep. Yeah. So with that, thank you for your.
Yeah, it'd just be nice. Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, no, way you go, Liam. Finish off.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to like in the models and stuff. It doesn't give too much variance because I know the areas grow like, and you can't plan for those. But it's nice to say, well, if this is the trend, this is a margin of plus 10%, this is a margin of minus 10%, just to show, well, this is the possibilities if it decreases or increases, just to have a more latitude of around what the trend is.
Yeah. All right. Good comment. All right. Thanks, Liam. Appreciate you making the effort to do this.
No worries. Appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Just wait for Liam to take his screen down.
Sorry, give me a moment.
And
That's
Liam,
right.
we need a copy sent through to Democracy at YDC, please, for the minutes.
Yep, so now I can send that through.
Cheers. Thanks, Liam.
Okay, thank you.
Rightio, who's next?
We have Auditing Federal Residents and Ratepayers Group, Leah. Oh, sorry. No, we don't. We have Port Waikato Residents and Ratepayers Group, Leah Fry. On page 176, councillors.
Who is it? Leah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you say 76?
176.
176.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Yes. Yes.
just a comment, submitter 2016, the residents and ratepayers, Have we not got them?
No, they're not in the waiting room.
Okay.
Okay,
Alan, can I just raise a point that was raised this morning that submitter KCN, page 133. If you actually look on that, because I've actually had a note from one of the other councillors, because I moved that in good faith, the submitter has actually put comments in and throughout the submission. So we shouldn't have removed it. So I'm wanting to withdraw my support for that resolution to withdraw.
too late, it's done.
Yeah, the reality is it's wrong. And I'm just raising my concern that we
Yeah,
were
okay, come on,
misled.
councillor, let's move on. I've got Lee here
Can
somewhere.
I just
Where is
make?
this one? No,
I'm-
councillor,
I'm s-
no. Councillor,
Oh,
cut off.
I've got
please.
somebody in the waiting room.
I know, I'm trying to let Lee in to talk.
Hello.
Afternoon, Lee. How
Kia
are you?
ora. Well, I'm a bit jealous because you guys are in level 2 and I'm still in level 4, but you get that on the big job.
Come
eh?
on, it must be all right out at the port.
Oh, do you see any takeaways? No, you don't. I can't get to the Tuakau for my bloody India curry. That's the worst of it.
I'll fly
All
some
right.
up for you.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Thanks, Lee. Hey, it's really good to see you. I wish it was in better circumstances, and I do feel for you.
well.
And let's hope you don't have to endure this for too much longer.
Yeah,
Over the
hopefully
fire.
next Wednesday.
Yeah, I hope it is for your sake, but I just wouldn't hold my breath on that one.
Thanks,
But-
Alan.
Yeah, I know. So I'm sorry, Lee. I owe you better than that.
That's encouraging.
All right. Okay, Lee,
All right.
look, take the submission as read. And look,
Yep.
you've got 10 minutes, including questions from councillors, so please knock your socks off for the next 10 minutes.
All right, okay. So Port Waikato, do we support the proposal? Not really. So Tuakau is a really valuable part of our community. You know, it's where we go for everything. It's where our shops are, our library, our India takeaways. It's all there. We go there, we go through it every day to get to work, and we don't actually feel it's broken as it is now. It works for us now. So we don't really see the need to change. Do we support councillor changes? To be honest, we don't care. It makes no difference to us. We've got one councillor now. You make changes, we'll have one councillor. So we're quite neutral on that. None of those changes will really make any difference to us. Do we support Port Waikato General Ward? Not really. We think that natural borders make logical borders. The northern side of the river has nothing to do with the southern side of the river, so it would be weird for them to be in our general ward. And conversely, at the southern end, you've got Glen Murray and Te Akau communities that you're going to split in half. So, you know, that doesn't really help them. And your responsibility of identifying communities of interest and being reflected in them fairly, you're going to split them in half, and I don't think that's very fair either. If there was a ward change, we would perhaps prefer that it was from the southern side of the river down to the bottom of those communities and that they're not split. I guess our most contentious issue is around the community boards. As we understand it, a community board is a legal entity which assures that we get representation and accountability with you, but a community committee doesn't have those rights. So that's a big thing for us. It makes us feel maybe more vulnerable if we didn't have the community board. If things did have to change and we did have to leave the Onewhero Tuakau Community Board, which has served us really well for some time, and if we have issues with representation on that, then that's back on us. We need to get someone to stand to go in that board, which we haven't. So that's back on us, that one. But if it did change and we did get kicked out and there was a Port Waikato General Ward, then we would ask that we could have a Port Waikato Community Board rather than a community committee. That's all I've got.
Oh, thanks, Lee. Hey, because that was probably a question I was going to ask you. So it has been mentioned by a number of submitters around if there was a split. At the moment, realising this is only a proposal, so it's not locked in concrete yet. So
Yeah.
if there was a split, there was an opportunity to create a Port Waikato Onewhero Pukekawa styled community board on that side. How would you feel about that?
Yep, I think we'd be okay with that. We're not comfortable with the community committee. We just feel that leaves us too exposed. Perhaps the way that the proposal is worded is a very strong focus on urban, and giving some representation and accountability legally to urban, but there doesn't seem to be any legal accountability representation towards the rural. So if there was a community board, we'd probably be more open to that.
Yep. Okay. Well, Port Waikato is the only community that's got an urban mass on that side of the river. So yeah, that's why I raised it. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Leah. Just wanted to tease that out a little further, because you might have noticed, if you've being level 4 lockdown, you're looking for reading material, you might have noticed in the other submissions that actually none of the community committees have asked to become boards. So the community committees themselves don't share perhaps the concerns you do. So my question for you is, I've heard your comments about preferring the legal sort of standing of a board, and you think that that outweighs having a very, very focused community committee, perhaps Port Waikato only. You think you'd actually be better served with what would have to be a broader based community board, probably taking in most of the ward.
We did have a meeting before the submissions were put in with a lot of the communities that would have been suggested being in the board, and they all actually did feel similar, the same way. Maybe haven't heard from them yet, I'm not sure. But we had somebody stand up, I can't remember who it was, who said, yes, there is a difference, and yes, one of them, we have to listen to you, but a committee legally doesn't have to listen to you, but, hand on heart, we will. But, that's not enough of an assurance. So we don't want to be, if we have issues, we want to feel that we have some standing, some recourse if you choose not to listen to us.
Okay.
And I got the feeling at that meeting that a majority of the other communities felt similarly, that they felt, firstly, if it's not broken, why fix it? And secondly, even if we did go into a general ward, can we still not have a community board with the Onewhiro Tuakau board?
Okay. Councillor Church.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Leah. So, Leah, just with all the changes that you experience, because you travel a lot with obviously your emergency services and your job, with all the changes and growth around the North Waikato area and where you live, do you think that we should have a representation it's been done in 3 years and then it can go up to legally 6 years? How do you think council should consider the future in terms of representation?
I think with the speed of the change and the evolution that we're having in our area, I think it would have to be 3 years until we've kind of reached some kind of settled point. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, the changes are just astronomical, even in the last couple of years. If you went for 6 years, if you looked back 6 years from today, the difference would be huge. And just because it worked 6 years ago, it may not work now. And I think that's why we need to, until things settle down, it needs to be 3 yearly. So we make sure that we're on top of what we actually need to be on top of.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions for Lee? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. If the cost of being part of a community board through the targeted rate were to increase, because we may be looking at how those community boards in the future are funded, if that targeted rate went up, do you think Port Waikato residents would still buy into being part of a community board if it cost them more?
Well, it depends on the value, doesn't it? Is it $5 or is it 20? It depends on the value. You can't really answer that without knowing what the difference in cost would be.
So if I was to give you an example, you currently pay in a community board area of $18.70, I think it is, or thereabouts. It could quite easily go to as high as $45 at the top end overall. So, and I think it's been raised by somebody else from your part of the world this morning around the value, and you've talked about the value of the board in relation to dollar terms. So, want to be honest here, that's what it could be going forward in the future.
It's quite a lot, isn't it, up to 45?
I'm not saying it will be, but it could be pretty close to it.
It's a difficult one because I can see the benefits that we get from a board that your average resident may not see. they don't see that we've gone to the Onewhero Tuakau Community Board and that we've requested thousands of dollars for video cameras, or that we've requested $1,000 a year to cover our Christmas parade and our beach dig and things like that. So they maybe aren't aware of the benefits the community gets from that targeted rate. So maybe that's more education as well.
Yeah, good point. All right, no one else? Okay, thanks, Leah. Good to see you. Sorry, I can't do anything about the takeaways.
Oh, come on, you promised.
I'll shout you a coffee when you get out. How's that?
Okay, it's a deal. It's a deal.
Deal.
Thanks,
Give me
Alan.
a ring.
Okay.
Thanks, Leah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Councillors, we now have John Burns, and he is presenting both the Onewhero Residents and Ratepayers Group submission on page 136 and then his own on page 182.
Hang on a minute. 136 and 102.
Yes.
Okay. So we're doing the 136 first?
That's how it's been scheduled.
Right. Who have we got?
John Burns.
Oh, John. Sorry, John. I looked around the screen, all these faces looking at me. I spotted you in the corner. Turn your mic on, mate.
How's that?
That's better.
Right.
That's better.
Okay. So good afternoon.
So before you kick off, John, so just so you're aware of the process here, we'll deal with your first submission and we'll take any questions on that. And then we'll move to the next one. So you've got 10 minutes on each, including any questions.
Right. Okay. Excellent.
Cool.
So I'm speaking as chair of the Onewhero Residents and Ratepayers Association, which has sort of recently resurfaced after I think many years of not doing too much. In general, we do not support the draft proposal. Already 3 of the proposed awards are at 106% or above. You know, that was based on June last year figures. So some of them are already likely to have exceeded that 110%. Results of community engagement here, there was public support for between 1 and 3 more councillors. In terms of the large wards, Warringa, Hukanui, Port Waikato and Te Takiwa Maori wards, they're physically huge, which will cause representation difficulties. Although Warringa Hukanui ward does have 2 councillors, so our recommendation would be to split that in 2 to alleviate that. With the boundaries as well, they don't seem to consider the communities of interest. For example, Aka Aka and Otau, they've been grouped into the Port Waikato ward, obviously with a river between them. The northern area would also be more in common with Tuakau, given their shared border with Auckland, but this is a decision for the Aka Aka area. Boundaries in the south will also split communities in half, for example, Glen Murray and Te Akau. We strongly do not support the proposal regarding the community boards. They're not just for urban areas. This is illustrated by both Raglan and Taupiri, where the community boards include large rural areas. The Onewhero Tuakau Community Board is a highly effective voice for the Onewhero community. We get a lot of grants. The schools in the area get grants. You know, they're very useful in such a physically large ward where it's almost unfair to expect the one councillor to be able to represent so many people. You know, the driving distances are huge. Tuakau is important to the community over the river. The Onewhero Residents and Ratepayers Association want to maintain the links between our communities as we share facilities and have many common interests. We also feel that the community engagement was very limited, involved only select groups with very limited advertising. Groups in Onewhero and the surround, such as the Onewhero and Port Waikato Ratepayers groups, the Wairamarama Hall Committee and the Onewhero Recreational Reserve Committee all confirmed they were not invited to take part in any of the engagement process. The Onewhero Residents and Ratepayers would prefer the community board area to remain as is, with the exception of minor increases to the area where logical or common sense dictates. But if that's not possible, we would wish to have a new community board covering the entire ward. Any questions?
Right, thanks, John. Probably I'll ask you the same question that we just talked to another submitter on is if there is a community board created on, I'll just call it the west of the river, or south of the river, whichever angle you're on or whichever bend you're on, would the community, and this will be a something that the other community board areas will have to look at in the future too, is a full cost recovery, meaning that the full cost of those community boards be borne by those areas. At the moment, you pay $18.70, I think, from memory, or thereabouts. If that was to go as high as $40 to $45 for a full cost recovery, realising that it's funded by general rate, which means everybody's paying for the community boards, how would you think that would go down?
I can't speak entirely for the community because we haven't obviously put this to them. However, the benefits we get from being in the community board, I think as long as they're made clear to the residents, there would not be a problem with that.
Okay.
In the scheme of an annual rates bill, you know, an extra $25 a year, I don't think most people would be concerned by that.
Okay, thanks. Good. Is there any questions of John before we move to his next submission? Realising this is the Onefero Ratepayers Residents and Ratepayers Group. No questions? All right, Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thank you. Very detailed submission, John. So I thank you for that. Can you just talk to me about the additional total number of councillors that you might then see across the district, including Māori representation? And spoiler alert, I'll tell you, as soon as you go one bigger, then the first extra becomes a Māori representation representative, according to the formula the government sets. So what will be the total number of councillors that you'd see?
Look, I obviously haven't played with the boundaries, so I don't have access to an answer that would help you with that. All I can say is, you know, the engagement that was done showed that people were in support of an increase in councillors, which personally I would like to see some of the larger areas with huge travelling distances supported with more councillors. But I really can't answer that, you know, that question. I know that lines have to be drawn, and you know, I'm guessing that's why Aka and Otal were lumped in with Port Waikato to make the numbers work. Probably because whoever made those boundaries didn't want it to be part of the Tuakau, you know, which is right next door. So it was sort of lumped in with Port Waikato. But without having, you know, knowing how these new boundaries might work, I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry.
So if I could just, if I may, Your Worship, so is there a sort of a feel, so not a scientific number, but a sort of a feel number that when you look at the size of the district, the different communities of interest that you've alluded to, you know, do you see there sort of being a need for another 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, you know, do you have a gut feel?
Sorry, who was that directed at?
Sorry, John, just supplementary, just to say, respecting that you haven't done the mesh blocks and haven't dived deeply into the numbers to get the plus minus 10%.
Yes.
There comes a point where the council becomes unmanageable too, because you've got, you know, 25 councillors and you won't get anything done. Is there a sort of a sweet spot that meets your representation needs?
Well, I think it was touched in our submission, and it has also been brought up earlier by Rosemary Costa, how the south of the district is sort of the wards are for, I think we've got 3 councillors in that area. So the south is very well represented with a strong southern front, but we don't do that in the north. I would like to see, you know, a strong northern front, because obviously Auckland is another, it's right over the border there. So I think we could definitely do with more councillors there, and that might take care of Aka and Otal. But, you know, I appreciate there's no black and white answer to these things, and, you know, people are spread out, which is, you know, when you do it purely on population, this is what you're going to get, but, you know, it's just not practical as it is.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, we will now move on to John's personal submission. So once again, John, knock your socks off.
Let me just bring up my notes here. Right, so the two, my name's John Burns, and the 2 things I'm strongly against in this proposal are the removal of the Greater Onefero area from the Onefero Tuakau Community Board, and the changes to the Port Waikato board. Including Aka Aka and Otau in the proposed Port Waikato board does not take into account their communities of interest, which are likely Pukekohe or Tuakau, but I don't know. They would need to be consulted on that. But this also massively increases driving distances for a single overworked councillor in an already huge ward. At the southern end of the Port Waikato ward, Te Akau is being split quite literally down the centre line of the road opposite the school. So that community is going to be split into two, which I don't support. Regarding the community board, Onewhero and Tuakau are integrated communities. School children go to school on opposing sides of the river. You only need to stand at the bridge on a school day morning to see different coloured uniforms going in two different directions. Onewhero only has a mechanics garage at the moment. So we visit Tuakau for our supermarkets, our postal services, our libraries, council offices, doctor's appointments, prescriptions, skate parks, fuel, the list goes on. So Tuakau is a community of interest for Onewhero. So, I do feel by removing them from the community board, it will remove a lot of representation for the area. We are affected by what happens in Tuakau. I would support the community board staying as is in the name of keeping the costs down, because I do appreciate there are management costs associated with this. But if that's not possible, my preference personally would be a second community board for the Port Waikato ward. And that's me. Any questions?
Probably one for you, John, from me before I go to Councillor Henderson is, and I know it's a point I picked up in your last submission, or the last one in relation to the Onewhero residents and ratepayers, was you had a strong emphasis on access to funding. So yes. Is that a big driver for that side of the river?
It is, because people are happy to put money into a fund if they then have some say in how that's getting spent. The schools have been getting money every year towards chemicals and swing pools, and people see that as a great way of having that money put back into the community. It is big. It's a big part of it, and having that control, being able to have some representation of where that money goes is useful, and people do like that, and I like that.
So the next question would be, if there was a board on the southern side of the river that had access to their own discretionary funding, would that be a better option?
I would prefer one large community board, both from a management cost point of view and the fact that we are so integrated with Tuakau community. So my preference would be to keep the existing board boundaries with some small changes as required.
Okay, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you for your submission, John. You speak very strongly that you wish to still be involved with the Onewhero Tuakau Community Board. Do you get the same feeling when you're in Tuakau that Tuakau people feel the same way, or do you feel that they are the driver for a split rather than Onewhero?
I believe Tuakau are a driver for a split. I can see the argument that you've got the urban-rural divide. I don't agree with it, mainly based on other community boards in the area, in the district, where there is an urban-rural component to them. But I do believe, there's a strong argument for Tuakau to have its own community board on its own. And, I'm not against change, but I'm definitely against losing representation by Onewhero being removed from the existing community board and not being offered a alternative that is, equivalent, I guess, would be the way to put it.
Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission, John. I just ask if there was a decision made to enable a targeted rate to be collected for discretionary funding purposes for a community committee, would that influence your decision as to whether the western side be replaced with a board versus a committee?
It would. I'm very strongly opposed to committees where boards have so much more, I guess, legal powers written into actual legislation. I appreciate that committees can be powerful and they can get things done, but the fact that boards are in the legislation and the acts, I would always strongly push for a board, more representation, rather, guaranteed representation in that case.
So can I ask you another question then, John? So what power do you think a community board has? Because I've heard this a number of times today.
I believe the biggest power is that they must be listened to. They cannot be ignored. We're a committee. My understanding is that you effectively have almost a memorandum of understanding with the council as to what that committee can and can't do. With the board, it's at a higher level, and as such, it must be listened to on certain matters.
So you're suggesting that I don't listen to the community committees?
I'm not saying that at all, but I would prefer something written in legislation over a promise or or a written agreement every time.
So the only difference, John, is how they're structured. One is structured under legislation, and one is structured under just a community well-being around how you would run any committee within a community. And I can tell you now, straight away, that I give as much respect as council gives to a well-organised community committee. In a lot of cases, far more, because so many of the community boards have been dysfunctional in my 20 years in local government, that you struggle to actually give them that support. So it's not about the legislation, it's about the personalities around the table and what they want to achieve. I just want to make that clear to you.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I appreciate both community committees and community boards. Can, and probably some of them probably are dysfunctional, and obviously that's a whole nother process that needs to be looked at as to what's wrong and what can be done to make them better. But I still have to, I guess, swing back to just the fact that a board has those legal rights, and I'm not calling anyone a liar, but having the law behind you is definitely a strong point for me.
So when you find out what those legal rights are, will you let me know?
Absolutely.
Thanks, John. I've got no one else who wants to raise any questions, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for submitting.
Thank you.
Cheers. Rightio. Where's Gayling?
Mary Ellen, we've just arranged with Helen Clotworthy from Pocono Community Committee to jump on earlier. So she's just connecting now.
Okay, cool.
Page 780, councillors. Your Worship, Russell Davis is actually sitting in the waiting room, and Helen's not on yet. Would you like?
Yes, put him through then.
Okay. So, councillors, page 243, submission number 1897.
Did you turn up? Russell. Turn your microphone on, Russell.
Voila, turned on.
Turned on. You're all go then.
Great.
Okay, Russell.
So is my 10 minutes start now?
Oh yeah, in a minute when I tell you what you have to do. Okay, so
great.
Take your submission as read. So you've got 10 minutes to talk to it. But if you would like questions from the councillors, give yourself a bit of breathing time in that 10 minutes. You there, Russell? He dropped off.
Possibly because his video is not showing, nor is his mute.
No, nothing's showing off, but he's Are you there, Russell? I've lost them all together now. All right, if Helen comes back, gets in, we'll take whoever's coming first.
So we don't know who this is because it's coming up as a number. Oh, it's Helen.
Where's that?
And
Oh, no,
Russell.
Russell's back. You back, Russell?
Yeah, I moved closer to my router. Maybe that will help.
That'll help. Okay. So as I was saying, Russell, for you, we dropped out. You've got 10 minutes. So take everything as read and away you go.
Okie dokie. Good time. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to both submit a written and also.
You're not coming through, Russell.
Can he take his video off? Because that sometimes helps.
Yeah. Turn your video off, Russell. Leave your sound on.
Okie dokie. Got that.
Yeah, see how that goes.
Great. Proposal, fine. Elected members, fine. Structure, fine. I agree with having a Portwide General Ward. The boundaries are fine. Boards.
Yeah, I keep losing you, Russell.
For the following reasons. One, their boards are very
Sorry, Russell, I'll have to take you off and maybe you can try again in another 10 minutes.
Is there a way he could telephone in, because most Zooms give them a telephone number, we don't need the video. So can Democracy organise that with them, please?
Yep.
Okay, Russell, one of the team will contact you around doing a phone call through. Right, where does Helen go?
She's coming back in now.
Okay. Turn your mic on, Helen. What number is this one?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, just hang on a minute, Helen, please.
Page 780, because it was a late submission.
Yeah.
3002.
Afternoon, Helen.
Hi, Alan.
How are you?
Yep, good, thanks. And yourself?
Oh, it's good. At least you've still got a smile on your face. That's one save you.
Only just.
Yeah, I know, and I feel for you. Honestly, do. Yeah. Hey, look, you know, they're at 10 minutes, and if you want any questions, so take your submission or the community's submission as read, and knock your socks off in the next 10 minutes.
Okay. Just the fact that this process won't be kicking in for 3 years, or approximately 3 years. By then, our population next year.
Yeah.
And the review process, is it every 6 years or every 3 years?
It can. You've got to do it a minimum of every 6 years, but can be done every 3 years.
So what our concerns are is that by the time this rolls around again, our population will have grown hugely, and that we will be vastly under-resourced with only one councillor. So it's more about getting ourselves on the front foot for being represented at Waikato District Council.
Anything more to add to that?
No, that was it. The message is that we're front footing this.
Yeah. Okay, so look, Liam McGrath actually raised the issue around the population and trying to, what was the word he used? Get ahead of the trend. Unfortunately, we can't. We can only work on the numbers that we're allowed to use on the day we make the final decision. We can't build into it stretch for the future. So one of the options is to do a 3-yearly review to actually help and to do that, but we can't use inflated figures to actually put more people on the ground, if you get what I mean.
And you know, given the size of our new geography as well, one councillor managing that area was another concern.
Yep, all right. Got a question from Councillor Church.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so Helen, yeah, around the growth. So can you expand a little bit more about, it has to go back to numbers and statistics. So how do you feel about your ward being at 106% as of 2020 population? I think that's the latest, or 2018 population, being at the high plus or minus 10% at 106% for the next 3 or 6 years. Is that what you're talking about?
It is. So we are already there now, and I just am worried that we'll be underrepresented at council where we're in such a high growth area. We can hardly keep up with what's happening now.
Right. So you're saying like we've got one ward, which is what people are calling the horseshoe around Hamilton, where they're started off at 93%. So at the lower end of the plus or minus 10%. How do you see the North Waikato or your ward ideally, if you had a choice?
With percentages or the number of councillors?
Well, the percentage of, it goes on a percentage of average of the percentage of people, plus or minus 10%. So some of the wards that are proposed are at 93% and your ward's at 106%. So in an ideal world, how do you see now, because of the growth, how do you see what you would, in your experience with the Pokeno Community Committee?
Well, it's going to be a high percentage, Jackie. You know, is it going to get up to 110% or is it going to be higher?
Well, it sort of goes to the point I made, Helen, that we can only work off the latest statistics we've got, and that allows us a margin of 10% either side of that.
Well, we're going to easily be at that 10% in a short amount of time. I know that you've got to work with the figures that you've got, but you're working off figures from 2020.
So if we drop that percentage of population down, that means that you'd probably get, well, my thoughts on that, you don't necessarily get more representation by dropping it down. That's what your thought was.
What I do know, Ellen, is that we need to be represented up in the north, and 2 councillors would do a really good job as against one, which would always be under pressure.
Okay. All right, Councillor Smith.
It's the geography as well. It's a huge area that now is being covered.
It's always been huge. Councillor Smith.
And we had 2 representatives as well.
Councillor Smith? Turn your microphone on, Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I thought I had. My question to the submitter is that, are you aware that council was presented with a map that had red indicating growth, and in the northern area it was nearly a solid block. In the southern area around the city, it was also a solid block of red, and then the gaps in between the rest of the district was an absolute mass of red dots where the population had increased. So the issue for me as a council looking at that is the growth is representative across the whole of the district. And if you're not aware of that and now becoming aware of it, would you concede that growth is happening in key areas all around and not just in your area?
I do realise that the growth is growing everywhere, but we're on the back foot in Pokeno and we're constantly in catch up just with our infrastructure. So we need to be well represented so that our flag is always being flown.
Doesn't that come back to the individual councillors? Because it's equitable representation across the district for everyone else.
We have 2 very good, hardworking councillors for us.
Mm-hmm.
But to lose one councillor, it just worries us. It worries us about our representation. Can they manage the level of work that will be required for our ward?
Thank you.
All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Oh, no, hang on. I had Councillor Sedgwick. I knew I had someone else there. Councillor.
Thank you, Helen. I'm just thinking about your comment on the size of your ward, and you were intimating geographically large as well as potentially the growth in Pokeno. And I wondered if you had a comment on some of the rural wards to the east and to the west of the river, both of which have very, very large geographical areas over an hour's drive between one and the other, if you like, from the top to the bottom, and high growth. So what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, I looked at those. I looked at all of those wards, Jan, and I just thought, you're a councillor representing that area. You've got a huge mileage to cover. I'm well aware of the mileage that other councillors would be doing. Thing is that we are growing so fast in Pokeno. That's actually the worry. It's not a controlled growth. It's a rampant growth, and with that come. It's something's thrown up every 6 weeks at our meetings. There's just issues are happening, and we seem to be even getting that infrastructure in place. You know what it's been like. I think our councillors work really well for us, but we've got 2 councillors representing us, and I just feel strongly that we keep those 2 councillors.
All right. Thank you, Helen. We'll leave it at that. Thanks for running up for the submission for the community group.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right. Have we got Russell back?
He's trying again through the phone.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, go.
And we've got John Anderson.
Hasn't shown and didn't confirm with us.
Okay, another one. Okay. Still no.
We just have to wait until Matt sees the link coming through on the phone.
Still no Russell?
Having a few technical difficulties.
Oh, I can quite imagine.
Alan, in that case, I'd like to raise a point of order, just to make something different for the day.
Hang on a minute. Just have to hang on a second.
That's all right.
still got my day job to do here.
Yeah.
Mary Ellen, he's on.
Okay. Is he on?
I'll come back to that at the next opportunity.
Okay, Russell, are you on now?
I am using my cell phone. This should be better. Thank you for taking the time and Matthew's time for assisting me. I appreciate it very much.
No, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. So can I just ask Galen what submission number this Russell's was now?
1897, page 243.
243. Rightio, Russell. As I said to you, I don't know whether you caught it all. You've got 10 minutes. Take your submission has been read. And if you want to leave your time for a few questions from the councillors, by all means, so that's in that 10 minutes. So knock your socks off.
Okie dokie. First, thank you for the total process that exists for representation. We've been to a couple of board meetings and a couple of people we've discussed with and are aware of the actual boundaries. So thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to make an oral submission, which I'll do now as promptly as possible, so there's room for questions should the group have one. As I look at I remember my submission to be the initial proposal, I guess yes or neutral. Elected members, fine. 13 is great. How you sort that out between whom is fine. The ward structure is fine. You know, and as for each ward, I either put yes or neutral because they don't apply to us. The Port Waikato General Ward, agree with that. I think the boundaries are fine. Community boards, my answer was no, in the sense of I do not believe a Port Waikato Ward community committee is going to work for us. The OTCB did little to help us, and from what we've read and the meetings we've had amongst ourselves, the board concept legally links yourselves to the board. That legal structure allows us both to agree on those initiatives that the community wants, not me, but the total community wants, which then aligns us together legally. A committee does not do that. It suggests that we get equal representation, but right now our trust quotient is rather low on that to happen. I know of at least 6 to 10 people, family or members on the street who have submitted a request for a board. So there's at least more than just myself having submitted this. And that's the main issue for that. So what I'm asking for is a Port Waikato Ward board. While I'm at it, I want to give a shout out to the Erosion Committee people. Jim Evanaugh, Carolyn Iyer, Simon Bendall, Andrew Bodello have been fantastic. They're working with us. They're very engaged with the community, and that's wonderful. There are other parts that I don't believe the engagement is as sound as you might wish it, certainly not as I wish it. The blueprint, we know there's 3 other communities, but it's a secret who they are, who's ahead of us. Solar lights are being purchased by the operations side of your business. That's also a secret. We don't know who that is, although I know the man who's selling them to you. So I know he's selling you lights and you're buying poles from someone else, but that's a secret. Getting street lights fixed around here has been tooth and nail. If it wasn't for Brenda, we'd probably still be in the dark on many parts. Some of us here feel that the relationship is one of lord versus peasant. One of your members wrote to our chair of our ratepayers that basically he told her to go pound sand if you want to know what we're going to do to fix or repair your playgrounds. He later, I'm told, was reprimanded for this. The question you have to ask is, why would someone even consider writing such a note as that? Answer is, somewhere in the part of the board he's in, there is a culture that believes that he can write notes like that to people. That is wrong. So I believe that a board will allow us to have a legal framework tied together where when we agree on what can be done and what budgets are done, we both go forward hand in hand. That's basically my submission. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Russell. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your submission, Russell. Just to clarify, we have heard from submitters on the western side of the community board, present community board, that there may be an appetite for a rural or western rural community board. I know you mentioned that you would like your own Port Waikato community board, but would you be satisfied to be part of a wider catchment, including all of the western or more of the western side?
Yes, your suggested ward boundaries have a large geographic area. And so that whole group, not just Port Waikato, that whole group of communities should be a single board. Is that what you're suggesting? Or a larger geographic area?
Yeah, so you specifically want a Port Waikato community board?
I want a Port Waikato ward community board, not a board just for Port Waikato. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Right, okay, right.
So I'm not talking about the community. Yeah, I'm not talking about the community of Port Waikato. I'm talking about the ward that you have outlined, that total geographic area that goes south toward Raglan. That whole space should be a board, a rural board in of itself.
All right, I think we got that message, Russell. All right, now I think Councillor Beck.
Yeah, just a quick question from me. I'm interested in your comments around the board basically being the preferred vehicle because of its status in legislation. Is that right? So that in the absence of trust, being there in a legislated way is the preferred. Is that your main driver?
Yes. The LP, the local, the answer is yes.
Do you have a comment as to why the existing community committees around our district haven't submitted to become boards? Their experience is perhaps different.
Well, maybe their experience has been different. The OTC, in March of this year, the OTCB board came out here, had a meeting in the afternoon to watch the sunset to discuss solar street lighting. They went away. Then I went back and saw them about, let's say May, made a presentation, came back again in like early June, and no one remembered that presentation. The minutes didn't list it, it was wrong. And then when Carolyn was kind enough to say, well, there's going to be a review by the district on lighting in general, the board then said, thank you very much. We can't help you because it's now at the district level. So that whole exercise is one of frustration and apparent lack of interest. So, you know, if you keep the structure as it is, then I guess part of it's on us. We need to seek representation through the next elections in October 22. But in the meantime, it's not, you know, you know, I'm down at the port, I go down to the beach and someone says, Russ, what's going on with lighting? Well, it's getting improved, thank God for Karen. We just have a high frustration level. You guys have a meeting, which you have, and you come and tell us you can only talk about these three things, we can't talk to you about anything else. That's a very frustrating issue. So, yeah, I think we would get the legal entity that allows the two to communicate, strengthens and ties our relationship. And I'm talking about a rural entity, and I'm not talking about, as we said, the community itself. It's the whole ward geographic space.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Appreciate your submission, and appreciate you persevering to talk to us.
Well, it's part of the democratic process, as I told the Honorable Assistant Mayor or Deputy Mayor. Democracy, I'm an American guy, but I'm a permanent resident married to a lowly Kiwi gal. Democracy is messy. It's not smooth, it's not easy. It's probably not meant to be, but that's fine, as long as we communicate together. This process allows us for submissions. We have the verbal submissions. We have an appeal process, depending on how you guys decide, which some of us may choose to use or not use. So it's been a good exercise. I think my 10 minutes is probably almost up. I don't want to misuse someone else's time, so I thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell. Really, really appreciate it. Good submission. Do appreciate the effort you put into it too.
Thank you. You have a safe day, and thank God we're living in New Zealand, not someplace else.
Yeah, I'll say that again. Thanks, Russell.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Right. Where's Galen? I've lost her again.
That's because I took my video off.
Oh, that's all right. Okay. Right. Do we have anybody in the waiting room?
No,
There is none.
no, that's all the submitters for today, Your Worship.
Okay. So John Anderson hasn't turned up.
No.
Okay. So how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 5 or 6 that have been no-shows today. So, yeah, all right. Back to your point, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Under the standing orders, 25.2, subject to points of order, misrepresentation of statements made by a member or council officer. I believe that there may have been a mistake in what Galen said earlier, insofar as looking at the submitter on page 133, submission 2018. Having accepted what was said this morning, I have been advised by another councillor, I've checked myself, and there are comments in the submission, and I would not have made the recommendation to exclude that that submission. And I asked council to, I'm withdrawing my submission for support for that decision, and asked council to reverse it. And when if we all check page 133, you will see there are notes included, and I would like to move that we reinstate the submission.
Look, councillor, do you really think it's worth that degree of effort on something that all it says is neutral? I think it's over pedantic, councillor.
No, look, I'm trying to prevent an appeal point here. If this woman got upset.
Well, look, you're going to get appeals. Look, first thing is, councillor, it is up to the chair as to whether he'll accept late submissions. Now, I did this morning. I accepted them. I could have rejected them quite easily because that was my right to do that as the chair. This one, in my mind, didn't measure up to being a valid submission.
Well, then so many others should be rejected, sir. And I appreciate the standing orders allow you and you alone to make a decision on a point of order, but I'm actually moving a motion to put in place the acceptance of that. The fact is, it won't must necessarily take any weight at all, but by rejecting it, we have actually given our first point of appeal, and it's only processed. It's, look, please don't stand on high horses, and I don't want to have a disagreement with you. But the reality is this is simple, just to correct a mistake we've made.
Councillor Sedgwick.
Look, I absolutely support Councillor Smith. It makes very little difference to the outcome since Democracy said it's been difficult to contact the submitter. But we all want this to be a clear and clean process without any glitches in it that could make it subject to appeal by anybody. And I would support, I understand it's a process thing, but simply I don't really believe that we would be rejecting it on the right basis. And that's why
I'll tell you now, I'm not going to overturn it here and now. I'll tell you that now because I can't overturn it. It'll only have to come back through as part of the minutes to be overturned at that point. So it's been passed and I can't turn the clock back. If I was able to do that. But would somebody tell me, you mentioned notes. I have no notes.
She's written neutral. Many other submitters have written neutral, or in fact, many submitters have not even made a comment at all, barring a word or two. She's also indicated that she wants to speak. Whether she takes that right up or not is not our issue.
So what I just need to clarify something here. So I don't know what you think has happened here. All I've done is I've rejected from actually hearing it today. I haven't thrown the submission out.
No, that was not what was moved this morning, sir. So could we just clarify what was actually written down as being moved? Because that might clear it up. We may be at cross purposes, sir.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to, because my biggest fear here, and look, you've all raised this with me in the past, if somebody submits on anything and there's no content, I should not accept it. So this has, other than having the word neutral on it, has no content. So all I was moving today was, I'm not going to hear it today because I was afraid that was going to be turned up with somebody talk about something that wasn't identified to us as a submission.
And I think that's where we're at cross purposes.
I wasn't rejecting it. I was rejecting to hear it today.
Well, my understanding is that I moved to reject the submission based on what was said, and that was an error, and I want to correct it. That's all I'm asking, is that the submission remain a valid submission, but we don't need to hear it, which is, I think we're on the same page, but just different language.
Okay, but I still don't think I can do it now.
Well, I believe you can, understanding order, sir.
I'll go back to Gailey.
So through the chair, you can, whilst you're in the same meeting, amend the resolution to remove that portion of excluding submission number 133.
So I was not about excluding submission. I was stating I was excluding it for hearing it today. Simply, yeah.
I'm sorry that I didn't hear that. I heard you say excluding submission one. Galen, can you clarify that? Because I don't know what was precisely said.
Well, sorry, you repeat what you've recorded, but I've got a memory of what I said.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, let's go to the text. Never mind the memories.
So it was, A was amended, receives the 228 submissions on the 2021 initial proposal, excluding submission 133, which has no true content. And we can amend that resolution whilst we're still in the meeting.
So,
okay. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem amending it to reflect what I was talking about was actually to not hear it today because it was actually in the agenda. So that's what I was trying to do.
Yes, because of the what I understood the comment was that there was no content, and I accepted that in good faith. All I'm trying to do is, as the mover, I believe I was, to seek to correct my misunderstanding and just take that part out about the submission 133 because I think it's irrelevant. They haven't turned up. We don't. It's there and it's just in the mix. So we're probably giving it more airtime than it deserves. But the reality is, I just want
a lot more airtime than it deserves. Some of us have got other meetings to go to.
I do too, sir. So, but I just want to be, me. It's about process.
So, Councillor Smith,
I eagerly await the submission.
Yes, it'll probably be neutral, but I think it's something that
Carolyn, Galen, I should say.
So, Councillor Smith, if you and Councillor Thompson, who are the movers and seconders, are happy to remove that exclusion of 133, and we just leave it silent because what his worship was saying was that he wasn't going to hear them verbally.
Yeah, if we can, please, if Councillor Thompson would support that. Thank you.
Yep.
Where is she? Oh, there she is.
Yes, she has.
Okay. Right, I don't have a problem with that then.
Thank you.
Rightio. What's the time?
Just 2:40.
Okay. So,
Your worship. Hand up.
Yeah, I know you got your hand up, Councillor. I'm still trying to run a meeting. So I'm trying to figure out where to from here. So you asked your question, Councillor, what I think about where to from here.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I understand that we haven't been able to get hold of that submitter. Is there any issue in not being, if someone requests to be heard, is there any issue about not hearing them? Is that grounds for complaint?
No. Look, in through hearings, all you actually have to do is have the written version and put your hand up on the Bible and state that you've read it. Okay, that's all you have to do. If they decide not to show up, you still have to accept that submission as read. So there is no appeal point because they didn't show up.
Yeah, it just seems a bit counterproductive to me. I hear what you're saying, because in theory, not you, I'm sure you wouldn't do that, but that means if you have any hearing where you've got 10 submitters, you could choose as a chairperson to not hear 4 of them and as a carte blanche. I can't see that there's, I'm just following on from what Councillor Smith has said, is that, whether she's available to speak or not. It just seems a loophole that I would be surprised it was actually there, just as part of that process. Can I have a clarification from that, perhaps from Democracy, please?
We can't do anything. I think Galen and the team have done an incredible job in trying to contact these people. If they don't want to show up, just remember one thing, this is no different on the screen than it is with all those people that never show up in the chambers. And that annoys the hell out of me too. They just end up being time wasters for all of us effectively. So all I'm saying here is there's a number of people who are no-show. The only one that's actually sent through an apology for not showing up today was Chris Ryan. Otherwise, the rest of them just didn't show up. And this is what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I understand that, Your Worship. Yeah, and we're busy and you've got another meeting. I'm happy to take that offline, but I'd like it recorded, Democracy, that for my learning and hearings, yeah, is it okay, you could decide as a chairperson to, and I understand the circumstances of this, but it still is a point of learning and understanding of hearing process that I would like the answer to the question that I had. I'm happy to have that sent to me offline, is that as a chairperson, you have carte blanche to decide how many people you listen to or you don't. Okay, that's the question. So if you can give me an answer later, that would be appreciated.
I'm trying to understand the question.
I understand it, Your Worship, so I'll just answer Councillor Church offline.
Thank you.
Okay. Rightio. Look, I don't know yet, based off what I've